Was Kevin Costner's John Dutton always supposed to die in Yellowstone? It's quite possible that if John Dutton, Kevin Costner, hadn't died in the premiere of Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2, he would have died in the series finale regardless. Fans were curious how Taylor Sheridan would write Costner out of the show after he didn't return for the conclusion. Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2's premiere got the main question out of the way immediately, revealing that John Dutton had, allegedly, killed himself in the governor's mansion. While John Dutton's death was more complex than it seemed, the premiere wasted no time explaining that Yellowstone's patriarch was gone. John Dutton's death outraged some audience members after Kevin Costner's controversial Yellowstone exit. Still, it could be that Taylor Sheridan moved on without John Dutton, because in the end, John always needed to die for the executive producer and screenwriter to end his flagship neo-Western story the way he intended. That said, while his fate was brutal, John's death in Yellowstone Season 5 wasn't far from what Sheridan intended. Looking at comments from key creators, it's pretty clear that John Dutton was always supposed to die in Yellowstone, and it was just a matter of when. That said, it's possible that John's death was supposed to happen in Yellowstone's finale. All of Taylor Sheridan's other Yellowstone shows witness the death of a major character in the final episode. For instance, Elsa Dutton, Isabel May, dies in the finale of the prequel series 1883, and Alex Dutton's, Julia Schlapfer, death marks the end of 1923. John's passing in Yellowstone's season finale would have fit that mold. Executive producer Christina Voros confirmed John Dutton's death was inevitable in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. When asked about John's death, Voros said it was always supposed to be part of the conclusion, because cases Luke Grimes' solution wouldn't have been possible without his father's passing. She said, inevitably, at some point, he was going to die. And even if there had been 17 more seasons with Kevin Costner, eventually in the story that is the saga of Yellowstone, that's what happens. The patriarch passes, and the legacy moves on to his children. If John's death was always planned, but intended for the finale, then suddenly, Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2 makes a bit more sense. The finale's events all orbit John's death, so it could be that Yellowstone's finale was always supposed to show John's fate, and the rest of the season was intended to set up its impact. The final chapter was filled with divisive flashbacks to before John's death, which could have been the story that Sheridan set out to tell before he decided to move John's death up to explain Costner's absence. While it's evident that John's death was part of the story Yellowstone set out to tell, it's tempting to think about what could have happened if John Dutton lived. If the governor had somehow avoided the attack on his life, he would have continued fighting for the ranch, regardless of whether his adopted son, Jamie Whiz Bentley, the Attorney General for Montana, successfully impeached him. If John had survived, perhaps he would have finally listened to Beth, Kelly Riley, who said the ranch needed to turn a profit and enact her business plans, giving John the capital to continue. Technically, if John had lived and maintained his claim on the land, the end of Yellowstone Season 5 could still have fulfilled Taylor Sheridan's prophecy in 1883. In a conversation between John's ancestor, James Dutton, Tim McGraw, and Spotted Eagle, Gil Birmingham, the Crow Elder tells Dutton that he can settle the Paradise Valley, but that his people will rise and take it in 7 generations, to which James replies they can have it. John's ranch would have passed a case eventually, then Tate, Breckin-Merrill, restoring stewardship of the land to the Crow's descendants after 7 generations. From the moment Kevin Costner's gravelly-voiced patriarch John Dutton first rode across the sweeping Montana landscape in Yellowstone's opening moments, one question lingered like smoke over a campfire. Was he destined to die? Taylor Sheridan, the series mastermind, once said he wanted to write a modern Western that told the story of America through the lens of land, legacy, and lawlessness. But did that vision always include the demise of its king? Or did the myth of John Dutton grow too large, too fast, even for its own creator? In the earliest days of the series development, whispers within the Paramount corridors suggested Yellowstone was meant to be a single-season limited series, a Western epic with a Shakespearean heart. John Dutton would rise, fight, and fall. His death was to be the crown jewel in a tragic tale of legacy lost and generational reckoning. Sheridan envisioned Dutton not as a hero to worship, but as a cautionary tale about what men will sacrifice to hold onto power. Yet something strange happened. Kevin Costner, in all his rugged, weathered charisma, made John Dutton a magnetic force. Viewers didn't just watch Yellowstone, they felt it. Every gruff monologue and ranch hand lesson resonated like gospel. Sheridan may have set out to kill Dutton, but the audience resurrected him week after week with unwavering loyalty. Suddenly, the man meant to fall became the man who couldn't. Network executives saw the ratings surge. Costner's hat became iconic. Ranch culture exploded in pop culture. And most notably, the show extended. What was once a tidy, 6-episode arc sprawled into 5 seasons and counting, with prequels, spin-offs, and a growing Dutton-verse. So was John Dutton always supposed to die? The answer may lie not in a single moment of scripting, but in the very nature of storytelling itself. Every great Western has a gunslinging patriarch whose grip on power defines, and ultimately dooms, him. Think of Ethan Edwards in The Searchers, or William Money in Unforgiven. Their fates were never clean, never neat. They stood alone on windswept plains, surrounded by silence and ghosts. John Dutton was born from this tradition. His death wasn't just probable, it was poetic inevitability. But something shifted, not just in the script, but in the culture. John Dutton became a hero for a divided America. A man who didn't apologize, who ruled his family and his land with iron resolve. In an era of flux, he represented permanence. Sheridan had written a fallible man, but America crowned him a legend. How do you kill a symbol? Behind the scenes, Costner's own arc began to mirror his characters. Reports of contract disputes, filming delays, and scheduling conflicts flooded Hollywood news outlets. The question morphed from will John Dutton die to will Kevin Costner return to film his death at all? Sheridan remained enigmatic in interviews, often suggesting that he writes to the truth of the character and not fan expectations. He hinted that John Dutton's death, whether it happened on screen, off screen, or spiritually, was never about shock. It was about justice. For the land, for the family, for the sins John refused to repent. And yet, there were clues all along. Season after season, John Dutton walked like a man carrying a terminal diagnosis, if not physical, then moral. He outlived attacks, betrayals, and a bushel of bullets. But he never really evolved. His arc wasn't about transformation. It was about decay. The cancer diagnosis in Season 2. The assassination attempt in Season 3. The endless political battles. All were metaphors for a man whose time was running out. Sheridan knew this. You could argue he stretched the string for as long as possible, because he recognized what Costner, and John, had become to the American audience. A father figure in a world gone haywire. Killing him too soon would have shattered the illusion. Killing him too late risked stagnation. So perhaps the more fitting question isn't whether John Dutton was always supposed to die, but whether his death would have meant as much if it happened any sooner. There's also the matter of legacy. Yellowstone isn't just a show about one man. It's about a dynasty. And dynasties, by design, need succession. Just as Logan Roy's death reshaped Succession, John Dutton's eventual exit, if handled with the same emotional gravity, could be the tremor that tests every member of the Dutton clan. Will Case rise to lead or flee to peace? Will Beth burn it all down or take the throne? Will Jamie, the scorned son, seize the moment he's waited for? Sheridan may not have all the answers, but John's death is the match that lights the final act. Without it, the Dutton family remains frozen, circling the same toxic campfire.